Part I, the name that started a war when I gave my daughter my last name instead of my husband's. I didn't think I was starting a war. I thought I was protecting her, but apparently I was also betraying him. At least that's what everyone keeps telling me. My in-laws, my friends, even my own mother. They say I humiliated him, that I disrespected tradition, that I broke something that can't be fixed. But none of them were there in that hospital room. None of them heard what he said before I signed that birth certificate. His name is Daniel. We've been married for 6 years. On paper, we look perfect. Nice house, stable jobs, matching smiles and photos. But behind the walls, everything's colder. He wasn't always like that. When we met, he was warm, kind, patient. But something changed after we got married. Or maybe he just stopped pretending. Control crept in slowly. At first, it was little things. What I wore, who I talked to, how much time I spent with my mom. Then it became what I cooked, when I could rest, how much I could spend without checking first. He never hit me, but sometimes I think I would have preferred that to the silence, the way he'd just look at me, like a teacher waiting for a child to correct a mistake. When I found out I was pregnant, I cried, not from joy but fear, because I knew what he'd want. A boy. A little Daniel Jr. to mold and control. When I told him it was a girl, he smiled politely, kissed my forehead, and said, well, maybe next time. And something inside me cracked, because I realized my daughter would never be enough for him. The pregnancy was hard. Complications, stress, bed rest. I spent the last 3 months basically living in the hospital while he came by once or twice a week. More out of obligation than care. One night, a nurse asked if I'd chosen a name yet. I told her I hadn't, that my husband wanted to wait until birth. She smiled softly. Well, sometimes moms just know. You can tell me your choice. I won't tell anyone. And for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control. My grandmother's name was Leela, I whispered. She raised me when my parents split. She was home. The nurse smiled again. Leela. It's beautiful. When Leela was born, I remember everything. The lights, the noise, the panic, and then her cry. Soft, fragile, perfect. They placed her in my arms, and for a second, the world stopped spinning. I whispered, hi, baby, I'm your mom. And in that moment, I promised her something. That she would never feel small in her own home. Daniel came the next morning. He was calm to calm. She is beautiful, he said flatly. Looks like you. I smiled. Yeah, I think she does. Then he added, she's a Bennett now. Leela Bennett, right? I paused. Something inside me clenched. I said, quietly, actually I was thinking, Leela Morgan. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. What? My name, Morgan. I want her to have it. He laughed, that sharp, humorless kind of laugh that sounds like glass breaking. Is this a joke? I shook my head. It's not. I want her to carry my family's name too. He leaned closer, his voice low. You mean instead, you didn't say to. You said her name. I didn't answer. He didn't shout. He didn't curse. He just stared at me for a long time and said, you're going to regret this. And then he walked out. I signed the papers an hour later. Leela Morgan. It felt like reclaiming something I didn't even realize I'd lost. But that peace lasted less than 24 hours. When we got home, the first thing I noticed was the silence. The second was the missing photograph from the wall. Our wedding photo. Had taken it down. That night, he didn't sleep in the same room. He didn't speak to me. He didn't even look at our daughter. By the next morning, his mother had called. Sweetheart, she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy, I heard about your little decision. Do you hate my son that much? And that was just the beginning. Every family dinner turned into an ambush. Every phone call ended with someone asking, why would you do that to him? Even my own mother called me selfish. She said, you should have talked to him first. You made him look weak. But how could I explain that I had talked to him? That had made every decision for me since the day we met? That this, my daughter's name, was the first choice that was mine. 3 months later, he filed for separation. Not divorce, separation. Because as he said in the paperwork, I can't be legally tied to someone who publicly disrespected me and my family legacy. He was fighting for her name. He wanted the court to change it to Bennett. I didn't even know you could sue someone over that. But apparently, you can. At the hearing, he looked at me with that same cold confidence he always had, the kind that made people believe he was the reasonable one. He said, she did this to punish me. She wanted control. That's all this is about. And maybe he was half right. I did want control, but not over him, over my life, my daughter's. The judge asked me why I'd chosen my last name. I told the truth because I want her to know that her name comes from someone who fought for her, not someone who tried to own her. The courtroom went silent. For once, even Daniel had no words. I won, legally, morally. I don't know. But Leela kept my name, and I kept the house, the silence, the distance. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if I went too far, if maybe I could have handled it differently, if maybe it was pride, not love, that guided my hand on that birth certificate. But then I watch Leela sleeping, her tiny hand curled around my finger, and I know this was the only battle worth starting, even if it cost me everything. Part E. The return of the Bennett name. It's been 7 years since that day in court. 7 years since I last heard Daniel's voice in person. 7 years since I signed the papers that made me a single mother and Leela officially a Morgan. Life after him wasn't easy. He didn't leave quietly. He dragged me through months of legal nonsense, claiming emotional distress and parental defamation. He lost every case, but made sure I lost sleep, money, and peace along the way. Eventually, he gave up and moved states. I thought it was over. For a long time, it was. Leela grew up happy. At least, I wanted to believe she was. She had my curls, his eyes, my stubbornness, and, unfortunately, his ability to make silence feel like a weapon. She started asking about him around age 5, not in the way kids usually do. She didn't ask where he was. She asked why he left, and I never knew how to answer. When she was 6, I told her the truth, or at least the cleanest version of it. Your dad and I didn't get along, I said gently. Sometimes adults can't fix what's broken. She nodded, small fingers playing with the edge of her blanket. Did he love me? She asked. The question punched through my chest. I think, I said slowly, he wanted to, but he didn't know how. 2 months ago, I found out Daniel was back. It started with a letter, not an email, not a call. A letter with his handwriting on the front, no return address. Inside was one sentence. Leela deserves to know both sides of her story. No signature, no apology, just that. I ripped it in half, then in quarters. Then I threw it in the trash. But the problem with ghosts is, they never stay buried. It happened on a Saturday. I was working in the kitchen when I heard Leela talking to someone outside. At first, I thought it was one of the neighbor's kids. Then I heard his voice. Hey, Peanut, he said softly. That same tone he used to use when he wanted to sound harmless. My blood went cold. I rushed to the porch, and there he was. Daniel Bennett, older, sharper, the kind of man who aged into bitterness instead of wisdom. His suit looked expensive, his smile rehearsed. Leela was standing 3 feet away, confused but curious. Mom, she said slowly, this man says has my dad. The world tilted. All those years of silence, all the nights I told myself he was gone. And now, here he was, smiling like he'd never left. I pulled Leela behind me. What the hell are you doing here? I hissed. He shrugged, hands in pockets. Visiting my daughter. She's not your daughter, I said, trembling. You forfeited that right when you walked away. He tilted his head, that same smirk creeping back. Funny. Last I checked, DNA doesn't expire. I wanted to scream, but Leela was watching, eyes wide, torn between curiosity and fear. Go inside, I told her now. She hesitated. Mom, I just want to. Inside, I repeated, sharper than I meant to. She flinched, then ran back into the house. Daniel watched her go, that smirk never fading. You're making the same mistake, you know, he said softly, controlling her, deciding for her. Just like you said I did to you. I froze, because deep down, I'd thought the same thing. That night, Leela wouldn't talk to me. She slammed her door, refused dinner, ignored every word I said. When I finally went into her room, I found her sitting on the bed with her tablet, scrolling through search results. Leela, I said carefully, we need to talk about. Is he really my dad? She asked. Her voice wasn't angry, just hollow. I nodded slowly, yes. But that doesn't mean has someone you should. I want to see him again. The words hit harder than any scream could have. Sweetheart, please, I whispered. You don't know him like I do. Maybe you don't either, she said quietly. Weeks passed. She stopped looking at me the same way. Every time her phone buzzed, she hid it. Every time I asked what she was doing, she said nothing. I wanted to believe it was just normal teenage distance. But mothers know. We always know. Then one night, I walked past her room and saw her asleep, phone still glowing in her hand. I picked it up, and my heart sank. Messages from a number saved as Dad. D. You don't have to listen to her. She just wants control. D. You're a Bennett. That's your real name. D. I'll pick you up after school Friday. Don't tell her. Friday came, and so did the nightmare. I got to the school early just in case. But when the bell rang, she didn't come out. Her teacher said she'd left minutes earlier with a man in a gray car. I called his number, straight to voicemail. Then I called the police. 3 hours later, they found her, safe, sitting at a diner 40 miles away, eating fries with Daniel like it was the most normal thing in the world. When I arrived, she looked up and said, "Mom, it's fine. He just wanted to talk." But when our eyes met, I saw something in hers that terrified me. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of me. Daniel stood up slowly. "She's fine," he said calmly. "We just needed time alone. You made that impossible." I wanted to hit him, scream, something. Instead, I just whispered, "You're poisoning her." He smiled. "No, I'm saving her from becoming you." That night, Leela refused to come home with me. The officers convinced her eventually, but the damage was done. Now, she barely speaks to me. She started writing Leela Bennett on her schoolwork. Every time I see it, my chest tightens. Not out of anger, but grief. Because maybe this was what he wanted all along. Not to win her love, but to watch me lose it. Last week, he filed for partial custody. The same man who abandoned her now wants rights. He says it's in her best interest. My lawyer says I have a strong case. But I've seen how charm wins over truth. I've seen judges fall for his calm voice, his perfect posture. And I can't stop thinking, what if she chooses him? Last night, I found Leela crying in her room. She finally looked at me and said, "Mom, why didn't you let me have both of you?" And I didn't have an answer. Because somewhere between love and protection, I'd built a wall so high, even she couldn't see past it. Maybe the name wasn't just mine. Maybe it was a curse. When I kissed her goodnight, she whispered something that broke me completely. "Dad says you gave me your name because you wanted to keep me for yourself." She turned away before I could speak, and I realized the fight over her name never really ended. It just changed battlegrounds. Now, it's not about a word on paper. It's about who she believes she belongs to. And the cruelest part, the answer might not be me. Part E. The cost of carrying my name. It's been 5 months since Daniel filed for custody. 5 months of interviews, court dates, and sleepless nights. 5 months of watching my daughter, my Leela, drift further away, her laughter now sharper, her eyes colder, like she's slowly unlearning how to love me. And I don't even blame her anymore. Not entirely. Because I know exactly what Daniel's doing. He's rewriting history. One conversation at a time. It started small. He'd show up to court in those pristine suits, all calm smiles and gentle tones, talking about shared parenting values and cooperative co-parenting. Meanwhile, his lawyer handed over cherry-picked screenshots, selective texts, anything to make me look unreasonable or emotionally volatile. He even dug up the hospital form from years ago, the one where I'd chosen my last name, and called it an act of spite. Every time he spoke, I could feel the courtroom shifting in his favor inch by inch. The judge, a man in his 50s with the same tired patience Daniel wore like a mask, kept saying things like, "Children need both parents. We have to consider her emotional development." I wanted to scream, "She doesn't need both. She needs safety." But no one listens to the woman who sounds emotional in court. They only listen to the man who sounds calm. Leela turned 13 last month. She spent the day at Daniel's new house, his perfect new house with a backyard, a pool, and a fiancée named Erica. Erica is everything I'm not: graceful, diplomatic, endlessly smiling. She's also 15 years younger than me. When Leela came home, she was glowing. "Erica made me a cake," she said. "She says she's not trying to be my mom, just my friend." I smiled tightly. That's nice. But that night, when I was tucking her in, she said something that made my heart stop. "Mom, Erica says she thinks it's weird that I don't share Dad's last name." My voice caught. "What did you say to her?" Leela shrugged. "I said it's my name. But I don't know. It would be easier if it matched." Easier. That word stayed with me all night. Weeks later, Daniel called. He said we should make this simple for her. Let her decide her name. It's her choice now. I knew what he was doing. He was letting her choose, but stacking the deck first. Still, What could I say? No, she can't decide who she is. That's exactly the kind of thing that would prove his point. So I said, fine, let her choose. 2 days later, I found the form on the kitchen counter. A name change request, signed in her handwriting, Leela Bennett. There was a sticky note on top. It just said, I'm sorry, Mom. I still love you, but this feels right. I sat at the table for a long time. I didn't cry, not at first, because the truth hit me quietly, like a dull ache instead of a wound. This wasn't just about Daniel anymore. It was about me. I'd fought so hard to keep my name alive in her that I forgot to make sure she wanted it. The next week, the court granted Daniel joint custody. He looked at me as the judge read the verdict, that same small, infuriating smile. But there was no triumph in it, only pity. He didn't need to win anymore. He already had what he wanted, her. One didn't see it coming, though, when the real betrayal hit. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't Leela. It was my mother. She called one night out of nowhere, said she'd been thinking about what's best for Leela. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. Maybe Daniel's right. Maybe it's time you let go of this war. You've held on too tightly for too long. I stared at the phone, speechless. Mom, I said slowly, you of all people know what he did to me. I do, she said softly, but I also know what you've done to yourself since then. You've built your whole life around being his opposite, not around being her mother. That cut deeper than anything Daniel ever said. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying every decision I'd made. Every argument, every no. Every time I'd tried to protect Leela by drawing another invisible line. Maybe Mom was right. Maybe in trying to save her from him, I'd just made her curious about what she was missing. Weeks later, the final hearing came. This time, Leela had to speak. She sat in that oversized chair, hands shaking, eyes flicking between us. Her parents at war. The judge asked, Leela, where do you feel most comfortable living? She hesitated, then whispered with Dad. It felt like the air left my body. But then she added, quickly, because I know Mom needs time to be happy again. The courtroom went silent. Daniel looked smug, but for the first time, I saw something else flicker across his face. Guilt, because even he hadn't expected that answer. That night, after everything, I found a note on my pillow. It was folded neatly, in her handwriting again. Mom, you always say names mean something. I think Bennett means I get to know both of you. Not just one side. But no matter what name I use, you're the one who raised me. You're the one who stayed. Please don't stop being my mom just because you're not my last name anymore. Love, Leela. I sat there holding that note, realizing something cruel and simple. She was never the one who betrayed me. It was my own fear that did. Fear of being replaced. Fear of losing her. Fear that if she wasn't mine, she wouldn't love me. But she did, even when she took his name. Months later, she started visiting me every other weekend. We'd cook together, watch old movies, take walks. Sometimes she'd accidentally call herself Leela Morgan again, and laugh embarrassed. One night, I told her, you don't have to choose, you know, between us. She smiled softly. I know. But you did. A long time ago. I opened my mouth to argue, then stopped. Because she was right. I had chosen, not between Daniel and me, but between control and peace. And peace had taken years to find. Last week, she turned 14. Her cake had both names written on it. Leela Bennett Morgan. She said it was her idea. Maybe both of you can stop fighting inside me now, she joked. We laughed, but I think she meant it. Sometimes I still wonder if I was the villain in all of this. If maybe Daniel wasn't wrong, just broken in a different way. But when I see her now, confident, kind, unafraid to be both parts of her story, I know, even if I lost every battle, I won the war that mattered, because she carries both our names now, and somehow that feels like redemption.